Swayambhuva Manu says, O all-powerful Lord, O killer of all sins, I shall abide by your order. Now please let me know my place and that of the living entities born of me. Text 15. O Master of the demigods, please attempt to lift the earth, which is merged in the great water, meaning the Garbhodak ocean, because it is a dwelling place for all the living entities. It can be done by your endeavor and by the mercy of the Lord. Text 16. Sri Maitreya said, thus seeing the earth merged in the water, Brahma gave his attention for a long time to how it could be lifted. In the purport, according to Jiva Goswami, the topics delineated here are of different millenniums. The present topics are of the Sveta Varaha millennium, and topics regarding the Chaksusa millennium will also be discussed in this chapter. So we're in the Chaksusa millennium of Brahma, of the seventh Manu. So text 17. Brahma thought, while I have been engaged in the process of creation, the earth has been inundated by a deluge and has gone down into the depths of the ocean. What can we do who are engaged in this matter of creation? It is best to let the Almighty Lord direct us. Purport. The devotees of the Lord, who are all confidential servitors, are sometimes perplexed in the discharge of their respective duties, but they are never discouraged. They have full faith in the Lord, and He paves the way for the smooth progress of the devotee's duty. But this is an important point, because devotees may be perplexed on how to discharge their duty, but they're never discouraged, because they have full faith in the Lord, and He paves the way for the smooth progress of the devotee's duty. So this is a very important point, because we always see that in the material world there are always great obstacles to achieving something, especially if it's to establish Krishna consciousness. And sometimes the devotees are perplexed. How are they going to please the spiritual master? How are they going to spread this movement, and so forth? However, if one has faith in Krishna, then they're not, let's say, disheartened or discouraged, because they know that the Lord is the supreme controller. And he's Bhaktavatsala. He loves his devotee. So there will always be some mysterious thing that will happen by the will of the Lord, so that the devotee can succeed in the service. There are many stories about this, many histories about this. It's happened to many devotees today and in the past. But this is a matter of faith. It's not, and Krishna has his own way of doing things, and devotees remain patient and stalwart in their following of the regulative principles and following the rules and regulations. And eventually, they see that the Lord's, let's say, guidance and the Lord's plan is that the devotee should succeed in efforts to spread Krishna consciousness. So, this verse in the 4th chapter, text 39, Shradava labhate jnanam tatpara samyatendriyai jnanam ladva param santim achirin adhigachyati. A faithful man, this is verse 4th chapter, verse 39, a faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge. And having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. So here Prabhupada in the purport writes, such knowledge in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by a faithful person who believes firmly in Krishna. One is called a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection. This faith is attained by the discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which cleanses one's heart of all material dirt. Over and above this, one should control the senses. A person who is faithful to Krishna and who controls the senses can easily attain perfection in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness without delay. So, this faith, what is this? That one attains it by engaging in devotional service and chanting Hare Krishna in the association of devotees. And this cleans away all the dirt from the heart of the devotee and the mind of the devotee. So, as one's faith increases, then the determination to serve the Lord becomes stronger and stronger. So you have to control the senses, you have to be engaged in devotional service, chant Hare Krishna, associate devotees. Okay, so then here Brahma is wondering, what am I going to do? How am I going to save the earth that's fallen into the Garbhodak ocean? So text 18 says, O sinless Vidura, all of a sudden, while Brahma was engaged in thinking, a small form of a boar came out of his nostril. So it comes out of the side of his nose. The measurement of the creature was no more than the upper portion of a thumb. So like something like this. Very small. O descendant of Bharata, text 19. While Brahma was observing him, this boar, that boar became situated in the sky in a wonderful manifestation as gigantic as a great elephant. Struck with wonder at observing the wonderful boar-like form in the sky, Brahma, with great brahmanas like Marichi, as well as Kumaras and Manu, began to argue in various ways. Is this some extraordinary entity come in the pretense of a boar? It is very wonderful that he has come from my nose. First of all, this boar was seen no bigger than the tip of a thumb, and within a moment he was as large as a stone. My mind is perturbed. Is he the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu? So Prabhupada explains, since Brahma is the supermost person in the universe and he had never before experienced such a form, he could guess that the wonderful appearance of the boar was an incarnation of Vishnu. The uncommon features, symptomatic of the incarnation of Godhead, can bewilder even the mind of Brahma. Text 23. While Brahma was deliberating with his sons, in other words, he's thinking about this, what is this creature? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, roared tumultuously like a great mountain. And Prabhupada writes in his purport, it appears that great hills and mountains also have their roaring power because they are also living entities. The volume of the sound vibrated is in proportion to the size of the material body. While Brahma was guessing about the appearance of the Lord's incarnation as a boar, the Lord confirmed Brahma's contemplation by roaring with his gorgeous voice. So whenever you hear an echo, let's say you're on the top of Mount Si, which is on the I-90 going toward Bend, going North Bend. You can walk up to that mountain. It's not that high. But when you get on the top, you can see all the other mountains, the Cascades, or you see a lot of mountains. It's a good view. It takes about an hour, maybe a little more than an hour to walk up that mountain. Well, if you make a loud noise, you'll hear an echo. And Prabhupada says, it appears that great hills and mountains also have their roaring power because they are also living entities. So anything that increases or decreases in size is living. It can be a cloud, it can be a mountain, it can be a tornado, it can be a hurricane. The volume of the sound vibrated is in proportion to the size of the material body. So, not only that, but Brahma hears the roaring of the boar, Varaha. Text 24. The omnipotent Supreme Personality of Godhead enlivened Brahma and the other highly elevated Brahmanas by again roaring with his uncommon voice, which echoed in all directions. Prabhupada writes, Brahma and the other enlightened Brahmanas who know the Supreme Personality of Godhead are enlivened by the appearance of the Lord in any of his multi-incarnations. The appearance of the wonderful and gigantic incarnation of Vishnu as the mountain-like boar did not fill them with any kind of fear. Although the Lord's resounding voice was tumultuous and echoed horribly in all directions as an open threat to all demons who might challenge his omnipotency. Text 25. When the great sages and thinkers who are residents of Janaloka, Tapaloka, Satyaloka heard the tumultuous voice of Lord Boar, which was the all-auspicious sound of the all-merciful Lord, they chanted auspicious chants from the three Vedas. So that roaring was so great that it was heard throughout the whole universe. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Maya, Maya, is very significant in this verse. Maya means mercy, special knowledge, and also illusion. So Maya with two long A's means mercy, specific knowledge, and also illusion. Therefore, Lord Boar is everything. He is merciful, he is all knowledge, and he is illusion also. The sound which he vibrated as the boar incarnation was answered by the Vedic hymns of the great sages in the planets Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. The highest intellectual and pious living entities live in those planets. And when they heard the extraordinary voice of the boar, they could understand that the specific sound was vibrated by the Lord and no one else. Therefore they replied by praying to the Lord with Vedic hymns. The earth planet was submerged in the mire, but on hearing the sound of the Lord, the inhabitants of the higher planets were all jubilant because they knew that the Lord was there to deliver the earth. Therefore Brahma and all the sages, such as Bhrigu, Brahma's other sons, and learned Brahmanas, were enlivened, and they concertedly joined in praising the Lord with the transcendental vibrations of the Vedic hymns. The most important is the Brihad Naradiya Purana verse, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we see how glorious this is. The boar roars in a tumultuous way, and great sages on the highest planetary systems in the material world, Mahaloka, Tapaloka, and so forth, reply by chanting Vedic hymns in a wonderful way. So text 26 says, playing like an elephant, he entered into the water after roaring again in reply to the Vedic prayers by the great devotees. The Lord is the object of the Vedic prayers, and thus he understood that the devotees' prayers were meant for him. So it's the transcendental conversation going on in the universe between Lord Bor, or Varaha, and great sages. Prabhupada writes, the form of the Lord in any shape is always transcendental and full of knowledge and mercy. The Lord is a destroyer of all material contamination because his form is personified Vedic knowledge. All the Vedas worship the transcendental form of the Lord. In the Vedic mantras, the devotees request the Lord to remove the glaring effulgence because it covers his real face. That is the version of the Ishopanishad. Hiranmayana patrena satyasya pitam mukam tatvam pusam apavrinu satyadharma yadristaye. So that's the 15th verse of the Ishopanishad, which says, O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. So the dazzling effulgence are the personal rays, or Brahmajyoti, coming from the form of the Lord. So he's saying here, the Lord has no material form, but his form is always understood in terms of the Vedas. The Vedas are said to be the breath of the Lord, and that breath was inhaled by Brahma, the original student of the Vedas. The breathing from the nostril of Brahma caused the appearance of Lord Bor, and therefore the Bor incarnation of the Lord is the personified Vedas, because it comes from the breathing of Brahma, and Brahma inhaled the sound vibration that came from the Lord originally for the creation of the world. The Vedas are said to be the breath of the Lord, and that breath was inhaled by Brahma, the original student of the Vedas. The breathing from the nostril of Brahma caused the appearance of Lord Bor, and therefore the Bor incarnation of the Lord is the personified Vedas. The glorification of the incarnation by the sages on the higher planets consisted of factual Vedic hymns. Whenever there is glorification of the Lord, it is to be understood that Vedic mantras are being rightly vibrated. The Lord was therefore pleased when such Vedic mantras were chanted, and to encourage his pure devotees, he roared once more and entered the water to rescue the submerged earth. Okay, so now text 27. Before entering the water to rescue the earth, Lord Bor flew in the sky, slashing his tail, his hard hairs quivering. His very glance was luminous, and he scattered the clouds in the sky with his hooves and his glittering white tusks. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When the Bor is offered prayers by his devotees, his transcendental activities are described. Here are some of the transcendental features of the Lord Bor. As the residents of the upper three planetary systems offered their prayers to the Lord, it is understood that his body expanded throughout the sky, beginning from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, or Satyaloka. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita that his eyes are the sun and the moon. Therefore, his very glance over the sky was as illuminating as the sun or the moon. The Lord is described herein as Mahidara, which means either a big mountain or the sustainer of the earth. In other words, the Lord's body was as big and hard as the Himalaya mountains, or Himalayan mountains. Otherwise, how was it possible that he kept the entire earth on the support of his white tusks? The poet Jayadeva, a great devotee of the Lord, has sung the incident in his prayers for the incarnation. Vasati dasana sikare dharani tava lagna, sasani kalanka kaliva nimagna, keshavadrita sukara rupa jaya jagadisha hare. All glories to Lord Keshava, Krishna, who appeared as the boar. The earth was held between his tusks, which appeared like the scars on the moon. Text 28. He was personally the Supreme Lord Vishnu and was therefore transcendental. Yet, because he had the body of a hog, he searched after the earth by smell. His tusks were fearful, and he glanced over the devotee brahmanas engaged in offering prayers. Thus he entered the water. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. We should always remember that although the body of a hog is material, the hog form of the Lord was not materially contaminated. It is not possible for an earthly hog to assume a gigantic form spreading throughout the sky, beginning from the Satya Loka. His body is always transcendental in all circumstances. Therefore, the assumption of the form of a boar is only his pastime. His body is all Vedas, or transcendental. But since he had assumed the form of a boar, he began to search out the earth by smelling just like a hog. He began to search out the earth by smelling just like a hog. The Lord can perfectly play the part of any living entity. The gigantic feature of the boar was certainly very fearful for all non-devotees, but to the pure devotees of the Lord, he was not at all fearful. On the contrary, he was so pleasingly glancing upon his devotees that all of them felt transcendental happiness. So this is what happens when the Lord appears. The demons get afraid, and the devotees become very enthusiastic. And this is also explained. There's a nice verse like that. Let's see where it is. I guess it's 13, chapter 13. One second. $11:36. Arjuna said, O Master of the senses, the world becomes joyful upon hearing your name, and thus everyone becomes attached to you. Although the perfected beings offer you their respectful homage, the demons are afraid, and they flee here and there. All this is rightly done. That's 11th chapter, 36th verse. That's exactly what's happening here. The devotees become very encouraged by the roaring of the boar. But the demons, they're getting afraid. Arjuna, after hearing from Krishna about the outcome of the battle of Kurukshetra, became enlightened. And as a great devotee and friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he said that everything done by Krishna is quite fit. Arjuna confirmed that Krishna is the maintainer and the object of worship for the devotees and the destroyer of the undesirables. His actions are equally good for all. Arjuna understood herein that when the battle of Kurukshetra was being concluded in outer space, there were present many demigods, siddhas, and the intelligentsia of the higher planets, and they were observing the fight because Krishna was present there. When Arjuna saw the universal form of the Lord, the demigods took pleasure in it, but others, who were demons and atheists, could not stand it when the Lord was praised. Out of the natural fear of the devastating form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they fled. Krishna's treatment of the devotees and the atheists is praised by Arjuna. In all cases, devotees glorify the Lord because he knows that whatever he does is good for all. So you see, In the same way, when Lord Bor is roaring, the demons become afraid and the devotees become very encouraged. And that is normal. So the gigantic feature of the boar was certainly very fearful for all non-devotees, but to the pure devotees of the Lord, he was not at all fearful. On the contrary, he was so pleasingly glancing upon his devotees that all of them felt transcendental happiness. Text 29. Diving into the water like a gigantic mountain, Lord Bor divided the middle of the ocean, and two high waves appeared as the arms of the ocean, which cried loudly as if praying to the Lord, "O Lord of all sacrifices, please do not cut me in two, kindly give me protection." Prabhupada writes, even the great ocean was perturbed by the falling of the mountain-like body of the transcendental boar, and it appeared to be frightened as if death were imminent. Text 30. Lord Bor penetrated the water with his hooves, which were like sharp arrows, and found the limits of the ocean, although it was unlimited. He saw the earth, the resting place for all living beings, lying as it was in the beginning of creation, and he personally lifted it. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word rasayam is sometimes interpreted to mean rasatala, the lowest planetary system. But that is not applicable in this connection. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, the Earth is 7 times superior to other planetary systems, namely Tala, Atala, Tala, Tala, Vitala, Rasatala, Patala, etc. Therefore, the Earth cannot be situated in the Rasatala planetary system. It is described in the Vishnu Dharma. Patala Muleshwara Bhoga Samhato Vinyasya Pado Prithivim Chabibartaha Yasyo Pamano Na Babuva So Chuto Mamatsu Mangalya Rividyaye Hari. Therefore the Lord found the earth on the bottom of the Garbhodaka ocean, where the planets rest during the devastation at the end of Brahma's day. Text 31. Lord Bor very easily took the earth on his tusks and got it out of the water. Thus he appeared very splendid. Then his anger glowing like the Sudarshana wheel, he immediately killed the demon Hiranyaksha, although he tried to fight with the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the Vedic literatures describe the incarnation of Lord Varaha, Bor, in 2 different devastations, namely the Chaksusa devastation and the Swayambhuva devastation. This particular appearance of the Bor incarnation actually took place in the Swayambhuva devastation, when all planets, other than the higher ones, Jana, Mahar, and Satya, merged in the water of devastation. This particular incarnation of the Bor was seen by the inhabitants of the planets mentioned above. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti suggests that the sage Maitreya amalgamated both the Bor incarnations in different devastations and summarized them in this description to Vidura. So we see there are 14 manus. Each one lasts for approximately 71 and 2/3 kalpas, or periods of 1,000 ages. And so, the Bhagavatam is not necessarily what you call chronological. And the idea is not, they're not trying to write a history book like a normal history book. They can pick and choose, or Vyasadeva can pick and choose events that happen that are similar, like incarnation of the Bor, but in different periods of Manu. And he could also amalgamate them, like he's doing here. the idea is to communicate the spiritual significance rather than to have exact chronological order. So the spiritual significance is that here is a fantastic, unbelievable form of the Lord as a boar. And Prabhupada in other places says that because Krishna is the father of all living entities, he also appears in every species to help the living entities get out of the immaterial entanglement. So he can also appear as a boar. But he's not an ordinary hog. He's a most extraordinary transcendental body. So he has a body that's particularly meant to perform this function of saving the earth from total destruction. And I think we're going to hear also how it is that the earth fell down from its orbit in space, and it was caused by Hiranyaksha and other demons. Hopefully we'll come to that before this finishes. Then the Lord, text 33, then the Lord, playing like an elephant, suspended the earth on the edge of his curved white tusks. He assumed a bluish complexion like that of a tamala tree, and thus the sages, headed by Brahma, could understand him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offer respectful obeisance unto the Lord. Now they were no longer confused. They understood that this is a special form of the Lord for the specific purpose of defeating Hiranyaksha and saving the earth that had fallen from its orbit into the Garbhodak ocean. Text 34, all the sages uttered with great respect. Now the sages are going to chant Vedic mantras glorifying the Lord. And this is rightfully done, because this is a transcendental pastime of the Lord, and he's just acted in an absolutely extraordinary way, and therefore he should be glorified. All the sages uttered with great respect, O unconquerable enjoyer of all sacrifices. Yeah, because Krishna is Bhuktaram Yagyatapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suridam Sarvabhutanam, Yajgatva Santam Richati. So he's Bhuktaram, he's a Bhukta, the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices. And they say that here also. Let me see where they say that. Anyway, it says, all sages utter with great respect, all unconquerable enjoyer of all sacrifices. Where is that? Yagya Bhavana, one who is understood by performances of sacrifice. All glories and all glories unto you. You are moving in your form of the personified Vedas, and in the hair holes of your body the oceans are submerged. For certain reasons, to uplift the earth, you have now assumed the form of a boar. So now they're glorifying the Lord. And his body is the form of the personified Vedas, which is an amazing statement. Purport. The Lord can assume any form he likes, and in all circumstances he is the cause of all causes. Since his form is transcendental, he is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as he is in the causal ocean in the form of Mahavishnu. Innumerable universes generate from the holes of his bodily hairs, and thus his transcendental body is the Vedas personified. He is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, and he is the unconquerable Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is never to be misunderstood to be other than the Supreme Lord because of his assuming the form of a boar to lift the earth. That is the clear understanding of sages and great personalities like Brahma and other residents of the higher planetary systems. So, Krishna can assume any form he wants, but he's recognized by the extraordinary activities that he engages in. that no one else can imitate. O Lord, your form is worshipable by performances of sacrifice, but souls who are simply miscreants are unable to see it. All the Vedic hymns, Gayatri and others, are in the touch of your skin. In your bodily hairs is the kusha grass, in your eyes is the clarified butter, and in your forelegs are the 4 kinds of fruitive activities. So we can see that the body of the Lord has transcendental significance. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There is a class of miscreants who are known in the words of Bhagavad Gita as Vedavadi, or so-called strict followers of the Vedas. They do not believe in the incarnation of the Lord, what to speak of the Lord's incarnation as the worshipable Hag. They describe worship of different forms or incarnations of the Lord as anthropomorphism. So this is a word made up of Greek, let's say, root words. Anthro means human being, and morphism means form of. So anthropomorphism means that you assume human-like form or behavior of someone. In other words, you project your human characteristics onto what you see. So, because Krishna appears in his 2-armed form, they call that anthropomorphism, that people imagine God to have a form like a human being. Right? It's not that it's real. It's what they assume, because that is the way people conceptualize. If there is a God, he's got to look like us. Right? In the estimation of Srimad Bhagvatam, these men are miscreants, and in Bhagavad Gita 7.15, they are called not only miscreants, but also fools and the lowest of mankind. And it is said that their knowledge has been plundered by illusion due to their atheistic temperament. For such condemned persons, the Lord's incarnation as the gigantic Hag is invisible. These strict followers of the Vedas who despise the eternal forms of the Lord may know from Srimad Bhagavatam that such incarnations are personified forms of the Vedas. Lord Boar's skin, his eyes, and his bodily hair holes are all described here as different parts of the Vedas. He is therefore the personified form of the Vedic hymns, and specifically the Gayatri mantra. Well, the Vedavadaratas, basically what Prabhupada is doing here is he's comparing them to what you would call speculators. Or in another place he refers, well, here he refers to them as Naradama. So, this is an important point, and I'm going to find where it's described here in the Ishopanishad. It's also described in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so in the Bhagavad Gita, it's explained. In the 2nd chapter. So in the 2nd chapter, verses 42 and 43, it says, Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadanti abhipaschitaha vedavada rata parata nanyat astiti vadina. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery languages words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth, being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. And Prabhupada writes, people in general are not very intelligent, and due to their ignorance, they are most attached to the fruitive activities recommended in the Karmakanda portions of the Vedas. They do not want anything more than sense gratificatory proposals for enjoying life in heaven, where wine and women are available and material opulence is very common. In the Vedas, many sacrifices are recommended for elevation to the heavenly planets, especially Jyotishtoma sacrifices. In fact, it is stated that anyone desiring elevation to heavenly planets must perform these sacrifices, and men with a poor fund of knowledge think that this is the whole purpose of the Vedic wisdom. It is very difficult for such inexperienced persons to be situated in the determined action of Krishna consciousness, as fools are attached to the flowers of poisonous trees without knowing the results of such attractions. Unenlightened men are similarly attracted by such heavenly opulence and the sense enjoyment thereof. So this is a strong condemnation of the Veda Vadaratas. Well, this is also explained in Ishopanishad, where, let's see where it is. Veda Vadaratas are people who are attracted to the sense gratificatory promises in the Vedas, and they perform the different yagyas for elevation to the higher material planets in the material world for enhanced enjoyment. And what is the result of that? The result of that is they become trapped in what's called the Ferris wheel syndrome. If you've ever been on a Ferris wheel, you know, in different festivals they have this big wheel, and you sit on a chair, and you go up and you feel happy, and then you come down, you don't feel so good. You go up again, you feel happy, and you come down. So the Veda Vadaratas are people that go up and down in the material world, and they're always trying to attain different types of sense gratification. And to do that, they perform the Karmakanda rituals for elevation to material planets, higher material planets. Okay. So I'm not sure where it is now. Okay. So let me just take a look here one more time. C253. 7:15. Okay. So 7th chapter, 15th verse also explains these Veda Vadaratas are also known as Naradama. Naradama means they're considered lowest of mankind because they're highly educated, but they use their education only for sense gratification. There are a lot of people like that today. Namam duskritina mudha prapadyante naradama maya prita jnana asuram bhavam asritaha, which says, those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, those are the Naradamas, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So the Veda Vadaratas are described as follows. Another class of duskriti, or miscreant, is called the Naradama, or the lowest of mankind. Nara means human being, and Adama means the lowest. Out of the 8,400,000 different species of living beings, there are 400,000 human species. Out of these, there are numerous lower forms of human life that are mostly uncivilized. The civilized human beings are those who have regulative principles of social, political, and religious life. Those who are socially and politically developed but who have no religious principles must be considered Naradamas. Nor is religion without God religion, because the purpose of following religious principles is to know the supreme truth and man's relation with him. In the Gita, the personality of Godhead clearly states that there is no authority above him and that he is the supreme truth. The civilized form of human life is meant for man's reviving the lost consciousness of his eternal relation with the supreme truth, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is all-powerful. Whoever loses this chance is classified as a Naradama. We get information from revealed scriptures when the baby is in the mother's womb, an extremely uncomfortable situation, he prays to God for deliverance and promises to worship him alone as soon as he gets out. To pray to God when he is in difficulty is a natural instinct in every living being because he is eternally related with God. But after his deliverance, the child forgets the difficulties of birth and forgets his deliverer, also being influenced by Maya, the illusory energy. It is the duty of the guardians of children to revive the divine consciousness dormant in them. The 10 processes of reformatory ceremonies, as enjoined in the Manu Samhita, which is the guide to religious principles, are meant for reviving God consciousness in the system of Varnashrama. So he's talking about these samskars, 10 samskars. However, no process is strictly followed now in any part of the world, and therefore 99.9% of the population is Naradama. In other words, they're not using the human body and human intelligence to elevate themselves to Krishna consciousness. They're just using all these assets for sense gratification. When the whole population becomes Naradama, naturally all their so-called education is made null and void by the all-powerful energy of spirit of physical nature. According to the standard of the Gita, a learned man is he who sees on equal terms the learned Brahmana, the dog, the cow, the elephant, and the dog-eater. That is the vision of a true devotee. Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who is the incarnation of Godhead as divine master, delivered the typical Naradamas, the brothers Jagai and Madai, and showed how the mercy of a real devotee is bestowed upon the lowest of mankind. So the Naradama, who is condemned by the personality of Godhead, can again revive his spiritual consciousness only by the mercy of a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in propagating the Bhagavata Dharma, or activities of the devotees, has recommended that people submissively hear the message of the personality of Godhead. The essence of this message is Bhagavad Gita. The lowest amongst human beings can be delivered by this submissive hearing process only. But unfortunately, they even refuse to give an oral reception to these messages, and what to speak of surrendering to the will of the Supreme Lord. Naradamas, or the lowest of mankind, will fully neglect the prime duty of the human being. So, here Prabhupada said in the purport today, text 35, he says, there is a class of miscreants who are known in the words of Bhagavad Gita as Vedavadi, or so-called strict followers of the Vedas. They do not believe in the incarnation of the Lord. What to speak of the Lord's incarnation as the worshipable God? They describe worship of the different forms or incarnation of the Lord as anthropomorphism. In other words, simply a projection of the human, of a human being on, who projects his human qualities onto God, or an incarnation or something. And if he doesn't see an incarnation of God like a human being, he'll reject it. So this anthropomorphism, when you project your human qualities onto God, then you bring God down to your level. See? In the estimation of Srimad Bhagvatam, these men are miscreants, even though they're highly educated, and even though they're strict followers of the Vedas. And in Bhagavad Gita 7:15, they are called not only miscreants, but also fools and the lowest of mankind. Well, we just read that. And it is said that their knowledge has been plundered by illusion due to their atheistic temperament. For such condemned persons, the Lord's incarnation as the gigantic hog is invisible. In other words, even if they see it, they don't believe it. Right? They ignore it. Okay, so in the Ishopanishad also, this is described. It says, Prabhupada says, of the different classes of men, you can see now, it's Bhagavad Gita 7:15, now, and also in Bhagavad Gita 2nd chapter, we read verses 41 and 42, and now we're reading in Ishopanishad, mantra 9, Antam tamaha pravisanti, ye vidyam upasyate, tato bhuya vitetamo, yayu vidyaya rataha. Those who engage in a culture of nescient activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those in the culture of so-called knowledge. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. So that second class is the Vedavadaratas. Now we're going to read what Prabhupada says. Of the different classes of men, karmis, jnanis, and yogis, the karmis are those who engage in the activities of sense gratification. In the modern civilization, 99.9% of the people, we have like what, 7 billion people in the earth? He's saying 99.9%, that's almost the whole population, are engaged in sense gratification. In the modern civilization, 99.9% of the people are engaged in the activities of sense gratification under the flags of industrialism, economic development, altruism, political activism, IT. No, it's not there, IT. I just added that. But you could say it's there somewhere. And so on. All these activities are more or less based on satisfaction of senses to the exclusion of the kind of God consciousness described in the first mantra. Ishavaisham idam sarvam jatkinja jagatyam jagat tenatak tena bunjitaha magridaha kashisvidanam. Krishna says that everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong. So, it says, in the language of Bhagavad Gita 7.15, people who are engaged in gross sense gratification are mudas, asses. The ass is a symbol of stupidity. Those who simply engage in a profitless pursuit of sense gratification are worshipping avidya, or ignorance, according to Sri Upanishad. And those who play the role of helping this sort of civilization in the name of educational advancement are actually doing more harm than those who are on the platform of gross sense gratification. So who is helping? Who are these advanced educated people who are helping this sort of civilization of sense gratification in the name of educational advancement? And they're doing more harm than those who are just grossly engaged in sense gratification. Well, it's going to explain now. The advancement of learning by godless people is as dangerous as a valuable jewel on the hood of a cobra. A cobra decorated with a valuable jewel is more dangerous than one not decorated. In the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya 3.11.12, the advancement of education by a godless people is compared to decorations on a dead body. In India, as in many other countries, some people follow the custom of leading a procession with a decorated dead body for the pleasure of the lamenting relatives. In the same way, Modern civilization is a patchwork of activities meant to cover the perpetual miseries of material existence. All such activities are aimed towards sense gratification, but above the senses is the mind, and above the mind is the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul. This is the aim of real education. Thus, the aim of real education should be self-realization, the realization of the spiritual values of the soul. Any education which does not lead to such realization must be considered avidya, or ignorance, or nescience. And to culture such nescience means to go down to the darkest region of ignorance. According to Bhagavad Gita 2.42 and 7.15, mistaken mundane educators are known as Vedavadaratas and Maya Aprita Jnanas. They may also be atheistic demons, the lowest of men. Those who are Vedavadarata pose themselves as very learned in the Vedic literature, but unfortunately they are completely diverted from the purpose of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita 15.15 it is said that the purpose of the Vedas is to know the personality of Godhead, but the Vedavadarata men are not at all interested in personality of Godhead. On the contrary, they are fascinated by such fruitive results as the attainment of heaven. Anyway, you can see how Prabhupada is condemning modern education because it's all materialistic. Anyone who engages in it is advancing in ignorance, not in education. Real education is self-realization, understanding one's relationship with God. And this is what's explained also, Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter, verses 12 and 13, where Krishna says, he says, no, not 12 and 13, sorry. I'm sorry. It says that in the 13th chapter, verses 12, verses 8 to 12. Amanitvam adamitvam ahimsa santirarjavam acharya pasamam socham staryam atma vinigraha indriyarte suvairagyam anahankara evacha janramityu jaravyadi dukkado sanadarshanam asaktir anavisvamga putradara grihadesu nityam cha samachitatma istonisto papadisu maichananya yogena bhaktir avyabhicharine vivikta desasevitvam aratir jnana samsadi adhyatma jnana nityatvam tattva jnanartha darshanam etad jnanam iti proktam ajnanam yad ato nyata. So this verse says humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from the entanglement with children, wife, husband, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical truth, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be, is ignorance. This is Krishna's words. This is what real knowledge is. So what people are learning today in schools is not real knowledge. It's a bunch of nonsense that teaches them to go to hell in the next life. It doesn't teach them to go back to Godhead. It doesn't teach them to believe in God. In fact, it's specifically meant to not believe in God. So here, Prabhupada says, but the Vedavada people, instead of realizing that the purpose of the Vedas is to revive the forgetful soul's lost relationship with the personality of Godhead, take it for granted that such side issues as the attainment of heavenly pleasure for sense gratification, lust for which causes their material bondage in the first place, are the ultimate end of the Vedas. Such people misguide others by misinterpreting the Vedic literature. Sometimes they even condemn the Puranas, which are authentic Vedic explanations for laymen. The Vedavadaratas give their own explanations of the Vedas, neglecting the authority of great teachers. They also tend to raise some unscrupulous person from among themselves and present him as the leading exponent of Vedic knowledge. Such Vedavadaratas are especially condemned in this mantra by the very appropriate Sanskrit word Vidyayam Rataha. Vidyayam refers to the study of the Vedas because the Vedas are the origin of all knowledge. Vidya and Rataha means those engaged. Vidyayam Rataha thus means those engaged in study of the Vedas. The so-called students of the Vedas are condemned herein because they are ignorant of the actual purpose of the Vedas on account of their disobeying the Acharyas. Such Vedavadaratas search out meanings in every word of the Vedas to suit their own purposes. They do not know that the Vedic literature is a collection of extraordinary books that can be understood only through the chain of disciplic succession. One must approach a bona fide spiritual master in order to understand the transcendental message of the Vedas. That is the direction of the Mundaka Upanishad 1.2.12. These Vedavadarata people, however, have their own acharyas who are not in the chain of transcendental succession. Thus they progress into the darkest region of ignorance. By misinterpreting the Vedic literature, they fall even further into ignorance than those who have no knowledge of the Vedas at all. So, that's why in another place Prabhupada says, it's better not to be educated and become a devotee than to be educated and become a demon. See? And this is what's going on today. So many people are being educated and they're becoming demons and becoming atheists and just engaging in sense gratification. Okay. So, therefore, so you see there's a perfect correspondence between this verse 35 in 3rd Canto, chapter 13, and verses 2.40 and 7.15 in Bhagavad Gita, and mantra 8. Is it mantra 8? There's mantra 9 in the Ishopanishad. So these strict followers of the Vedas who despise the eternal forms of the Lord may know from Srimad Bhagvatam that such incarnations are personified forms of the Vedas. So the body of the boar incarnation, Varaha, is the personified form of the Vedas. Every part of his body is representative of Vedic knowledge. Lord Boar's skin, his eyes, and his bodily hair holes are all described here as different parts of the Vedas. He is therefore the personified form of the Vedic hymns, and specifically the Gayatri mantra. Text number 36. O Lord, your tongue is a plate of sacrifice. Your nostril is another plate of sacrifice. In your belly is the eating plate of sacrifice, and another plate of sacrifice is the holes of your ears. In your mouth is the Brahma plate of sacrifice. Your throat is the plate of sacrifice known as Soma, and whatever you chew is known as Agnihotra. So we can see that the body of this hog is transcendental, and it's representative of all the Vedic knowledge. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Vedavadis say that there is nothing more than the Vedas and the performances of sacrifice mentioned in the Vedas. They have recently made a rule in their group to formally observe daily sacrifice. They simply ignite a small... Prabhupada here is talking about the Arya Samaj people. He's not mentioning the name, but that's who he's talking about. They have recently made a rule in their group to formally observe daily sacrifice. They simply ignite a small fire and offer something whimsically, but they do not strictly follow the sacrificial rules and regulations mentioned in the Vedas. It is understood that by regulation there are different plates of sacrifice required, such as Shrak, Shruva, Barhis, Chaturhotra, Ida, Chamasa, Prasitra, Graha, and Agnihotra. One cannot achieve the results of sacrifice unless one observes the strict regulations. In this age, there is practically no facility for performing sacrifices and strict discipline. Therefore, in this age of Kali, there is a stricture regarding such sacrifices. It is explicitly directed that one should perform Sankirtan Yagya and nothing more. The incarnation of the Supreme Lord is Yajneswara, and unless one has respect for the incarnation of the Lord, he cannot perfectly perform sacrifice. In other words, taking shelter of the Lord and rendering service unto him is the factual performance of all sacrifices, as explained herein. Different plates of sacrifice correspond to the different parts of the body of the Lord's incarnation. In the Srimad Bhagvatam, 11th canto, it is explicitly directed that one should perform Sankirtan Yagya to please the Lord's incarnation as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This should be rigidly followed in order to achieve the result of Yagya performance. So, this is very interesting. In other words, there are no qualified Brahmins to perform these Vedic sacrifices as they were performed in previous ages. And it's Kali Yuga, the only Yagya that can be performed successfully is Harinam Sankirtan Yagya. So, who's going to come out on Harinam? I don't see any hands going. I just see one hand. That's all? Nobody else? You're not coming? Okay, text number 37. Moreover, O Lord, the repetition of your appearance is the desire for all kinds of initiation. Your neck is the place for 3 desires, and your tusks are the result of initiation and the end of all desires. Your tongue is the prior activities of initiation. Okay, we have to keep quiet. The child cannot make all this noise. Your tongue is the prior activities of initiation. Your head is the fire without sacrifice, as well as the fire of worship, and your living forces are the aggregate of all desires. O Lord, your semen is a sacrifice called Soma Yagya. Your growth is the ritualistic performances of the morning. Your skin and touch sensations are the 7 elements of the Agnis Toma sacrifice. Your bodily joints are symbols of various other sacrifices performed in 12 days. Therefore, you are the object of all sacrifices called Soma and Asoma, and you are bound by Yagyas only. Purport. Srila Prabhupada says, there are 7 kinds of routine yagyas performed by all followers of the Vedic rituals, and they are called Agnistoma, Adyagnistoma, Ukta, Sodasi, Vajapeya, Atiratra, and Apturyama. Anyone performing such yagyas regularly is supposed to be situated with the Lord, but anyone who is in contact with the Supreme Lord by discharging devotional service is understood to have performed all different varieties of yagyas. O Lord, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are worshipable by universal prayers, Vedic hymns, and sacrificial ingredients. We offer our obeisances unto you. You can be realized by the pure mind, freed from all visible and invisible material combination. We offer our respectful obeisance to you as the supreme spiritual master of knowledge in devotional service. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The qualification of bhakti, or devotional service to the Lord, is that the devotee should be free from all material contaminations and desires. This freedom is called vairagya, or renouncement of material desires. One who engages in devotional service to the Lord according to regulative principles is automatically freed from material desires, and in that pure state of mind, one can realize the personality of Godhead. So this is a very important statement. That is, that one who engages in devotional service to the Lord according to regulative principles is automatically freed from material desires. So what are those regulative principles? Well, it's coming to Mangal Arati every day. It's taking at least 2 baths a day. Usually it's 3 baths. It is chanting minimum 16 good rounds a day. Okay, tell them to keep quiet. If it's not the kids, then it's the pujaris. So everyone is trying to disturb the class. You understand? This is wrong. In a temple, it shouldn't be like that. Right? The class is very important. But if you have all this noise going on all the time, how can you hear? Right? It's better we don't have the class in the temple room. We have it somewhere else. You know, there has to be absolute quiet in order to hear this. So, it says here that one who engages in devotional service to the Lord according to regulative principles is automatically freed from material desires. So, what are those regulative principles? That is, waking up early every day, coming to Mangal Arati, chanting your rounds, mostly in the morning, and also, also, regularly hearing morning and evening the class, taking prasadam, seeing the arti to the deities. All these things are doing devotional service. All these things are regulative principles. If you do that, then you will automatically be freed from material desires. And in that pure state of mind, one can realize the personality of Godhead. That pure state of mind is the result of following these regulative principles and being very precise in doing all these things. The personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, instructs the devotee regarding pure devotional service so that he may ultimately achieve the association of the Lord. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10:10 as follows: Tesam satati yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upayantite. To one who constantly engages in the devotional service of the Lord with faith and love, the Lord certainly gives the intelligence to achieve him at the ultimate end. So what does it say? Constantly engages in devotional service of the Lord with faith and love. One has to conquer the mind, and one may do it by following the Vedic rituals and by performing different types of sacrifice. The ultimate end of all those performances is to attain bhakti, or devotional service to the Lord. Without bhakti, one cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The original Personality of Godhead, or his innumerable expansions of Vishnu, are the only objects of worship by all the Vedic rituals and sacrificial performances. So we see Prabhupada is making a strong case here to defeat the speculation of the Vedavada Ratas, the so-called strict followers of the Vedas, but they don't follow the purpose of the Vedas. Vedaischa sarvera ham eva vidya. The purpose of the Vedas and the strict following is to engage in devotional service to Krishna and understand who Krishna is. So then he starts. Then he gives a veiled mention of the Arya Samajis, who say, well, you have to do Agnihotra every morning and say some Vedic mantras. But he says that they're not doing it correctly. They claim to be doing it correctly, but they're not. And then he explains about different sacrifices: Shrak, Shruva, Barhish, Chaturhotra, Ida, Chamasa, Prasitra, Graha, and Agnihotra. He says, one cannot achieve the results of sacrifice unless one observes the strict regulations. In this age, there is practically no facility for performing sacrifices in strict discipline. Therefore, in this age of Kali, there's a stricture. There's meaning a rule regarding such sacrifices. It is explicitly directed that one should perform Sankirtan Yagya and nothing more. There you are. Very explicit. And then in the next verse, that was in verse 38, he says, there are 7 kinds of routine yagyas performed by all followers of the Vedic rituals, and they're called Agnistoma, Atyagnistoma, Ukta, Sodasi, Vajapeya, Atiratra, and Apturyama. Anyone performing such yagyas regularly is supposed to be situated with the Lord, but anyone who is in contact with the Supreme Lord by discharging devotional service is understood to have performed all different varieties of yagyas. So, in other words, he's saying you don't have to do these yagyas. You just be engaged steadily in devotional service, unflinching devotional service. And the whole point of the Vedic rituals is to conquer the mind by performing different types of sacrifices. But the ultimate end of all those performances is to attain bhakti, or pure devotion, or devotional service to the Lord. Without bhakti, one cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The original Personality of Godhead, or his innumerable expansions of Vishnu, are the only objects of worship by all the Vedic rituals and sacrificial performances. So this eliminates the RSS also. They pay allegiance to the flag of India. That has nothing to do with Krishna, right? And this eliminates a lot of nonsense movements and even religions. So text 40. O lifter of the earth with its mountains, which you have lifted with your tusks, is situated as beautifully as a lotus flower with leaves sustained by an infuriated elephant just coming out of the water. Purport. The fortune of the earth planet is praised because of its being specifically sustained by the Lord. Its beauty is appreciated and compared to that of a lotus flower situated on the trunk of an elephant. As a lotus flower with leaves is very beautifully situated, so the world, with its many beautiful mountains, appeared on the tusks of the Lord Boar. O Lord, as the peaks of great mountains become beautiful, when decorated with clouds, your transcendental body has become beautiful because of your lifting the earth on the edge of your tusks. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, verse 41. The word Vibrama is significant. Vibrama means illusion, as well as beauty. When a cloud rests on the peak of a great mountain, it appears to be sustained by the mountain, and at the same time it looks very beautiful. Similarly, the Lord has no need to sustain the earth on his tusks, but when he does so, the world becomes beautiful, just as the Lord becomes more beautiful because of his pure devotee on the earth. Because of his pure devotees on the earth. Although the Lord is the transcendental personification of the Vedic hymns, he has become more beautiful because of his appearance to sustain the earth. Text 42. O Lord, for the residential purposes of all inhabitants, both moving and non-moving, this earth is your wife, and you are the Supreme Father. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you, along with Mother Earth, in whom you have invested your own potency, just as an expert sacrificer puts fire in the arani wood. Purport. The so-called law of gravitation which sustains the planets is described herein as the potency of the Lord. This potency is invested by the Lord in the way that an expert sacrificial Brahmana puts fire in the arani wood by the potency of Vedic mantras. By this arrangement, the world becomes habitable for both the moving and non-moving creatures. The conditioned souls, who are residents of the material world, are put in the womb of Mother Earth in the same way the seed of a child is put by the father in the womb of the mother. This conception of the Lord and the earth as father and mother is explained in Bhagavad Gita 14.4. Conditioned souls are devoted to the mother land in which they take their birth, but they do not know their father. The mother is not independent, in producing children. Similarly, material nature cannot produce living creatures unless in contact with the Supreme Father, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagvatam teaches us to offer obeisances unto the Mother along with the Father, the Supreme Lord, because it is the Father only who impregnates the Mother with all energies for the sustenance and maintenance of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. So, this is referring to 14:14, which is another verse often quoted by Prabhupada. And it says, Sarvayoni Sukonteya Samvanti Sarvayoni Sukonteya Sambhavanti Murteya Tesam Brahma Mahadnyonir Aham Bija Pradapita. Right? Yeah. So, it should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. So Krishna is the Father of all living entities. Right? Okay, so now so he's talking about the law of gravitation. The so-called law of gravitation, which sustains the planets, is described herein as the potency of the Lord. This potency is invested by the Lord in the way that an expert sacrificial brahmana puts fire in the rani wood by the potency of Vedic mantras. By this arrangement, the world becomes habitable for both the moving and non-moving creatures. The conditioned souls who are residents of the material world are put in the womb of Mother Earth in the same way the seed of a child is put by the Father in the womb of the Mother. This conception of the Lord and the earth as Father and Mother is explained in Bhagavad Gita 14:4. Conditioned souls are devoted to the motherland in which they take their birth, but they do not know their Father. The mother is not independent in producing children. Similarly, material nature cannot produce living creatures unless in contact with the Supreme Father, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us to offer obeisances unto the Mother along with the Father, the Supreme Lord, because it is the Father only who impregnates the Mother with all energies for the sustenance and maintenance of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. So, this is a very significant purport. It basically, Krishna's Brahmajyoti energy is reflected off the sun, and the sun is the source of all energy in the universe. Prabhupada has explained this in one place, that the energy of the sun in form of heat and light keeps planets in space. In another place, he's gave the example of Ananta Shesha, with his infinite number of hoods, holds the planets in their orbits. So there are different explanations, but ultimately it's the energy of the Lord that sustains everything, right? And not only that, the Lord also enters into every atom of the universe and in the heart of every living entity. So, and besides that, his Brahmajyoti effulgence is the basis. Everything is situated on the Brahmajyoti. And more than that, also is the fact that he encompasses the whole universe by his form of Virat Rupa. So the Lord is omnipresent everywhere in the material universe and is sustaining everything. And by his glance, he impregnates the womb of Mother Nature with the jivas that come into the material world. So you cannot have living beings without the Lord as the seed-giving Father. Who else but you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, could deliver the earth from within the water? It is not very wonderful for you, however, because you acted most wonderfully in the creation of the universe. By your energy, you have created this wonderful cosmic manifestation. So these are all prayers glorifying Lord Varaha. When a scientist discovers something impressive, to the ignorant mass of people, the common man, without inquiry, accepts such a discovery as wonderful. But the intelligent man is not struck with wonder by such discoveries. He gives all credit to the person who created the wonderful brain of the scientist. The common man is also struck with wonder by the wonderful action of material nature, and he gives all credit to the cosmic manifestation. The learned Krishna-conscious person, however, knows well that behind the cosmic manifestation is the brain of Krishna, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.10, Maya dakshena prakriti suyate charachanam. Since Krishna can direct the wonderful cosmic manifestation, it is not at all wonderful for him to assume the gigantic form of a boar and thus deliver the earth from the mire of the water. A devotee is therefore not able to act. The devotee therefore is not astonished to see the wonderful boar, because he knows that the Lord is able to act far more wonderfully by his potencies, which are inconceivable to the brain of even the most erudite scientist. Text 44. O Supreme Lord, undoubtedly we are inhabitants of the most pious planets, the Jana, Tapas, and Satyalokas, but still we have been purified by the drops of water sprinkled from your shoulder hairs by the shaking of your body. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Ordinarily, the body of a hog is considered impure, but one should not consider that the hog incarnation assumed by the Lord is also impure. That form of the Lord is a personified Vedas and is transcendental. The inhabitants of the Jana and Tapas and Satyalokas are the most pious persons in the material world, but because those planets are situated in the material world, there are so many material impurities there also. Therefore, when the drops of water from the tips of the Lord's shoulder hairs were sprinkled upon the bodies of the inhabitants of the higher planets, they felt purified. The Ganges water is pure because of its emanating from the toe of the Lord, and there is no difference between the water emanating from the toe and that from the tips of the hair on the shoulder of Lord Boar. They are both absolute and transcendental. Text 45. O Lord, there is no limit to your wonderful activities. Anyone who desires to know the limit of your activities is certainly nonsensical. Everyone in this world is conditioned by the powerful mystic potencies. Please bestow your causeless mercy upon these conditioned souls. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Mental speculators who want to understand the limit of the unlimited are certainly nonsensical. Every one of them is captivated by the external potencies of the Lord. The best thing for them is to surrender unto Him, knowing Him to be inconceivable, for thus they can receive His causeless mercy. This prayer was offered by the inhabitants of the higher planets, planetary systems, namely Jana, Tapas, and Satyalokas, who are far more intelligent and powerful than humans. Vishwam Samastam is very significant here. There are the material world and the spiritual world. The sages pray, both worlds are bewildered by your different energies. Those who are in the spiritual world are absorbed in your loving service, forgetting themselves and you also. And those in the material world are absorbed in material sense gratification and therefore also forget you. No one can know you because you are unlimited. It is best not to try to know you by unnecessary mental speculation. Rather, kindly bless us so that we can worship you with causeless devotional service. The sage Maitreya said, text 46, the Lord being thus worshipped by all the great sages and transcendentalists touched the earth with his hooves and placed it on the water. The earth was placed on the water by his inconceivable potency. The Lord is all-powerful, and therefore he can sustain the huge planets either on the water or in the air as he likes. The tiny human brain cannot conceive how these potencies of the Lord can act. Man can give some vague explanation of the laws by which such phenomena are made possible, but actually the tiny human brain is unable to conceive of the activities of the Lord, which are therefore called inconceivable. Yet the frog philosophers still try to give some imaginary explanation. Text 47. In this manner, the personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the maintainer of all living entities, raised the earth from within the water, and having placed it afloat on the water, he returned to his own abode. The personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, descends by his will to the material planets in his innumerable incarnations for particular purposes, and again he goes back to his own abode. When he descends, he is called an avatara, because avatara means one who descends. Neither the Lord himself nor his specific devotees who come to this earth are ordinary living entities like us. Text 48. If one hears and describes in a devotional service attitude this auspicious narration of Lord Bor, which is worthy of description, the Lord who is within the heart of everyone is very pleased. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In his various incarnations, the Lord appears, acts, and leaves behind him a narrative history which is as transcendental as he himself. Every one of us is fond of hearing some wonderful narration, but most stories are neither auspicious nor worth hearing because they are of the inferior quality of material nature. Every living entity is of superior quality, spirit soul, and nothing material can be auspicious for him. Intelligent persons should therefore hear personally and cause others to hear the descriptive narrations of the Lord's activities, for that will destroy the pangs of material existence. Out of his causeless mercy only, the Lord comes to this earth and leaves behind his merciful activities so that the devotees may derive transcendental benefit. Text 49. Nothing remains unachieved when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with someone. By transcendental achievement, one understands everything else to be insignificant. One who engages in transcendental loving service is elevated to the highest perfectional stage by the Lord himself, who's seated in everyone's heart. So that's the example of Narada Muni. He was uneducated. He had a single parent family, just his mother, and then his mother died, and he became an orphan. But because he had association for 4 months with great Bhaktivedantas, or great pure devotees, he became the greatest saint in the history of the world. That's without formal education. That's without anything other than tasting the remnants of the food of these great Mahatmas and hearing their discourses and offering them service. And they blessed him. This is real education. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 10.10, the Lord gives intelligence to the pure devotees so that they may be elevated to the highest perfectional stage. It is confirmed herein that a pure devotee who constantly engages in the loving service of the Lord is awarded all knowledge necessary to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For such a devotee, there is nothing valuable to be achieved but the Lord's service. If one serves faithfully, there is no possibility of frustration because the Lord himself takes charge of the devotee's advancement. The Lord is seated in everyone's heart, and he knows the devotee's motive and arranges everything achievable. In other words, the pseudo-devotee who is anxious to achieve material gains cannot attain the highest perfectional stage because the Lord is in knowledge of his motive. One merely has to become sincere in his purpose, and then the Lord is there to help in every way. And this is a very important statement, and it's difficult for people today to understand. One merely has to become sincere in his purpose, and then the Lord is there to help in every way. On the other hand, the pseudo-devotee who's anxious to achieve material gains cannot attain the highest perfectional stage because the Lord is in knowledge of his motive. So Krishna is in the heart. He knows what our real motive is. We can't hide it from him. If our real motive is just to make money and have sense gratification, but we put on the masquerade of being a devotee, then Krishna knows right away. On the other hand, one merely has to become sincere in his purpose. So if our only purpose, whether it's making money or whatever, is to serve the Lord, and we actually do it, then the Lord is there to help in every way. Just like when we were trying to build this temple, I explained many times to the devotees, if our desire is pure, we'll be able to do it. But if somebody has a material desire to accomplish through building the temple or whatever, it's not going to succeed. And also, people who smoke, drink and eat meat and so forth, they don't build temples. They build stadiums, they build movie houses, they build casinos, and they're big. or they build the Taj Mahal in Las Vegas. That's what they do. But only people who are sincerely trying to serve the Lord are able to build temples. Now, if you build a temple for Karmakanda performances, it's not a real temple. It looks like a temple. Yeah, it's another business, good business. Yeah, make a lot of money, but it's not really a temple. Okay, verse 50, and we're almost last verse. Who, other than one who is not a human being, can exist in this world and not be interested in the ultimate goal of life? Who can refuse the nectar of narrations about the personality of Godhead's activities, which by itself can deliver one from all material pangs? Let me read that again. Who other than one who is not a human being can exist in this world and not be interested in the ultimate goal of life? The ultimate goal of life is to become a pure devotee of the Lord, engage in pure devotional service, attain love of God, and go back to Godhead. Who can refuse the nectar of narrations about the personality of Godhead's activities, which by itself can deliver one from all material pangs? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The narration of the activities of the personality of Godhead is like a constant flow of nectar. No one can refuse to drink such nectar except one who is not a human being. And such devotional service begins by hearing about the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. Only an animal, or a man who is almost an animal in behavior, can refuse to take interest in hearing the transcendental message of the Lord. There are many books of stories and histories in the world, but except for the histories or narrations on the topics of the personality of Godhead, none are capable of diminishing the burden of material pangs. Pangs meaning material miseries. Therefore, one who is serious about eliminating material existence must chant and hear of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. Otherwise, one must be compared to the non-humans. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 13th chapter of the Srimad Bhagvatam, entitled The Appearance of Lord Varaha. So the important things to remember is the body of Lord Varaha is the personified Vedas. It's not a pig's body. It's the personified Vedas themselves. And everything emanating from his body is transcendental. Okay, so as it said, anybody hears this, narrations, or hears these narrations, where do we read that? Anyone who hears these narrations, the narrations of the activities of personality of Godhead is like a constant flow of nectar. It's a fact. If you get into it and with attention and faith, it becomes nectar. Okay, any questions, comments? Prabhupada says, if one serves faithfully, there's no possibility of frustration, because the Lord himself takes charge of the devotee's advancement. The Lord is seated in everyone's heart, and he knows the devotee's motive and arranges everything achievable. In other words, the pseudo-devotee who is anxious to achieve material gains cannot attain the highest perfectional stage because the Lord is in knowledge of his motive. One merely has to become sincere in his purpose, and then the Lord is there to help in every way. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, good news. soon as I come back from India, we're going to purchase the truck because now we have $25,000. And that is without a donation from Srinivas Kasam. That's all right, because once we purchase the truck, we have to raise another $25,000 to outfit it to become a food truck. So we're only halfway there. No, I mean, the other truck was not a new truck either, but it was virtually new because it only had 26,000 miles on it. Yeah. So Bhakta Daniel put us over the top by donating $3,000. Yeah. Radhika Gopinath donated $2,000. And this guy right here donated $10,000. And surprisingly, but very, very appreciative, our Kuchipudi dance teacher, Sukshma, and her husband. Almost 1 year ago, they promised to help us buy another truck. And they've donated, $3,500. But now she's going to do a dance performance to raise more money. Yeah, so. And they come regularly, the whole family, to volunteer at the food truck. So they're invested in the food truck. They see how it's blossomed. You know, now it's not really a food truck anymore. It's like a cafe, due to our Mukunda's very, very expert management. He sets up five tents and puts the sides on them. You know, so even if it's a cold day, the people sitting inside, they feel good. And also, he has Christmas lights and an amplified music of Prabhupada singing. Plus, there's chai and prasadam. It's like a cafe. I mean, you know. So I was thinking of adding some other things, because we should bring another 2 tents, but someone else will have to bring them, and set it up with some chairs and tables, and there we can serve more tea and cookies and cupcakes, but preach. And so anyone who's interested can come into that, you know, and we can just preach. We don't have to rent a room in the, you know, and they won't say anything, because another 2 tents is not going to change anything, you know. But we should not only have the cafe, but we should have, you know, preaching. Huh? Well, they can come and go as they like. We're not going to force them to stay. Haribol. Praise the Srila Prabhupada ki jai.